Welcome back to the channel. Today we are embarking on a journey into the darker side of general aviation, a territory where engineering ambition meets the hard limits of human reflex. We are stepping into the cockpits of machines that demand absolute perfection, aircraft that have earned a chilling reputation among the community of aviators. These are not the forgiving trainers that float gently down to the runway. These are the machines that bite. In the world of aviation, the concept of the solo flight is the ultimate expression of freedom. It is just you, the machine, and the sky. But for some aircraft, flying solo means there is no one else to help you manage the workload when things go wrong. There is a specific category of airplanes that pilot unions, insurance companies, and seasoned instructors whisper about. They are fast, they are sleek, and often they are beautiful. But beneath that polished aluminum or composite skin lies a set of aerodynamic characteristics that can turn a routine Sunday flight into a fight for survival. We are going to discuss 5 specific aircraft today. These planes have distinct personalities. Some were built for speed, sacrificing stability for knot count. Others were designed for aerobatics, but proved too temperamental for the average stick-and-rudder pilot. And some represent the pinnacle of modern technology, yet still manage to trap pilots in fatal scenarios. We will analyze the aerodynamics, the history, and the tragic flaws that put these names on the do not fly list for many cautious aviators. We are looking at high wing loading, unforgiving stall characteristics, fragile landing gears, and the psychological traps that lead to pilot error. Retaining control in these aircraft requires more than just a license. It requires a mindset of constant vigilance. When you strap into one of these, you're not just a pilot, you are a risk manager. So fasten your seatbelts and check your magnetos, because we are about to throttle up into the danger zone. Here are the 5 deadliest planes even pilots are afraid to fly solo. 5. Grumman AA-1 Yankee. The Grumman AA-1 Yankee is a machine that is often remembered with a strange mixture of nostalgia and genuine terror. Introduced in the late 1960s, this small 2-seat aircraft was intended to compete directly with the Cessna 150, which was the undisputed king of flight training at the time. However, the design philosophy behind the Yankee could not have been more different, and this divergence is where the danger lies. While the Cessna was built to be docile, forgiving, and floaty, the Yankee was built like a fighter jet in miniature. It utilized a bonded wing construction, meaning the skins were glued rather than riveted, creating an exceptionally smooth surface. This, combined with a tubular spar that served as the fuel tank, gave the aircraft a sleek, aerodynamic profile that looked fast even when sitting on the ramp. However, this design choice resulted in a wing that was entirely different from the high-lift airfoil students were used to. The primary fear surrounding the Yankee comes from its stall and spin characteristics. In a standard trainer, a stall is preceded by a buffet, a shuddering of the airframe that warns the pilot the wing is about to stop flying. The Yankee offers little to no such warning. It utilizes a laminar flow wing, which is efficient for speed but notoriously abrupt at the critical angle of attack. When the Yankee stalls, it brakes sharply and often rolls aggressively. If the pilot is uncoordinated during this event, specifically during the precarious base-to-final turn, the aircraft can enter a spin almost instantaneously. Unlike the Cessna, which resists spinning and recovers easily, the Yankee winds up quickly. It loses altitude at a terrifying rate, and for a low-time pilot flying solo at a low altitude, recovery is mathematically impossible before ground impact. This characteristic earned it a grim reputation in flight schools, with many instructors refusing to send students solo in it. Furthermore, the Yankee is known for its high sink rate. When the power is pulled back, the aircraft does not glide, it drops. This catches many pilots off guard during the landing flare. If you flare too high or let the airspeed bleed off too much, the Yankee will simply stop flying and drop onto the runway, often collapsing the nose gear. The landing gear itself utilizes a castering nose wheel, meaning it is not steerable with the rudder pedals. Ground handling requires differential braking, which can be tricky for the uninitiated, leading to runway excursions. The Yankee brick, as it is sometimes affectionately and fearfully called, demands energy management that is more akin to a high-performance complex aircraft than a basic trainer. It lures pilots in with its sporty looks and responsive handling, but it punishes any lack of attention with swift aerodynamic retribution. It remains a plane that teaches you to fly correctly, simply because the alternative is often a twisted pile of aluminum. The accident statistics for the AA-1 series, particularly regarding stall-spin accidents, are significantly higher than its peers, reinforcing the idea that this is not a toy, but a wolf in sheep's clothing. 4. Sportsman. When we discuss the Sportsman, specifically in the context of the Glasair Sportsman 2+2 and similar high-performance experimental aircraft, we are entering a sector of aviation that is fraught with a unique set of dangers. This aircraft represents the ultimate dream for many general aviation pilots, a versatile, four-seat, high-wing plane that can land on backcountry strips, float on lakes, or cruise cross-country at respectable speeds. It is a kit plane, meaning the owner often builds a significant portion of it. While this allows for customization and a deep understanding of the machine, it introduces a variable that certified aircraft do not have: build inconsistency. However, the deadly reputation of the Sportsman does not necessarily stem from the airframe itself, which is robust, but from the mission profile it encourages and the pilots it attracts. The Sportsman is an enabler of overconfidence. Because it is marketed as a go-anywhere machine, pilots often take it places where their skills do not belong. The fear here is the moose stall scenario, a term used in backcountry flying where a pilot, low and slow while looking at scenery or maneuvering for a tight landing spot, pulls too tight of a turn. The Sportsman, with its high-lift wing, will hold on until it simply can't. When it departs controlled flight at low altitude and heavy weight, the result is almost always fatal. Furthermore, the transition to the Sportsman is often underestimated. Many pilots move up to this aircraft from smaller, lighter trainers. The Sportsman is a large, heavy aircraft for its class, capable of hauling a significant load. However, pilots often underestimate the impact of gross weight on handling characteristics. When fully loaded with fuel, baggage, and passengers, the center of gravity shifts and the stall speed increases. A pilot flying solo might be used to the plane performing like a rocket, but with a full load, it becomes a different beast. The high-wing loading means that if the engine fails, the glide ratio is not generous. You are coming down fast, and you need to pick a spot immediately. Additionally, many Sportsman aircraft are configured as tail draggers. While this is excellent for rough fields, it requires a level of footwork and directional control that many modern pilots lack. The ground loop is a constant threat. If the pilot lets the tail swing out on landing, the center of gravity overtakes the main wheels, and the aircraft spins violently on the ground, often causing the gear to collapse or the wing to strike the tarmac. The experimental nature also means that maintenance is often done by the owner. While many owner-builders are meticulous, others are not. A second-hand Sportsman might harbor hidden demons, wiring issues, fuel system quirks, or structural imperfections that a standard mechanic might miss. It is a plane that requires a professional test pilot mentality to operate safely, yet it is often flown by amateurs seeking adventure. The gap between the aircraft's capability and the pilot's proficiency is often where the tragedy occurs, making the Sportsman a machine that demands respect bordering on fear. 3. Citabria. The Citabria, a name derived by spelling airbatic backward, is a legendary aircraft that has introduced thousands of pilots to the joys of tailwheel flying and basic aerobatics. However, do not let its charming fabric-covered appearance fool you. This plane has a darker side that has claimed many careless aviators. The Citabria is deceptive because it looks and feels like a simple high-wing trainer, similar to a Piper Cub or a Cessna 140. But unlike those aircraft, the Citabria was designed to withstand higher G-forces and perform maneuvers like loops and rolls. This capability lures pilots into pushing the envelope, often before they are truly ready. One of the most critical issues with the Citabria is its lack of flaps on many models. This means that to lose altitude for a landing, the pilot cannot simply dump drag. They must perform a forward slip. This involves crossing the controls, rudder one way, aileron the other, to present the side of the fuselage to the wind. While this is a standard maneuver, doing it incorrectly at low speeds can induce a cross-controlled stall, which leads to a snap roll into the ground. This is a classic base-to-final killer, but the true reputation of the Citabria as a deadly plane comes from its ground handling. It is a short, coupled tail dragger with a relatively narrow main landing gear. This geometry makes it extremely susceptible to ground loops, particularly in crosswind conditions. A ground loop occurs when the aircraft begins to pivot around its vertical axis while rolling on the ground. Because the center of gravity is located behind the main wheels, any deviation from straight-ahead travel is amplified by momentum. If the pilot is slow on the rudder or overcorrects, the Citabria will whip around violently. This can result in scraped wingtips, collapsed gear legs, and in severe cases, a rollover. Many pilots who are used to tricycle gear aircraft, which naturally want to straighten out, find the Citabria unforgiving. It requires dancing on the rudder pedals from the moment the engine starts until the prop stops spinning at the hangar. Furthermore, the visibility from the back seat where the instructor sits is notoriously poor, making it difficult for an instructor to save a student who is losing control during landing. For the solo pilot, the challenge is visibility over the nose during taxi and takeoff. The Citabria also has a relatively low wing loading, making it easily tossed around by turbulence. In gusty conditions, fighting the controls can be physically exhausting. It is an airplane that ostensibly invites you to have fun, but if you relax for even a second during the rollout, it will embarrass you, or worse. The wood spar wings on older models also present a terrifying hidden danger: internal rot or cracks that are invisible during a pre-flight inspection, but can lead to structural failure during high-G maneuvers. This combination of demanding ground handling and the temptation to perform aerobatics without sufficient altitude makes the Citabria a plane that pilots approach with wary respect. 2. Cirrus SR-20. The Cirrus SR-20 revolutionized general aviation when it was introduced, bringing composite construction, glass cockpits, and the famous CAPS, Cirrus Airframe Parachute System, to the masses. It was marketed as a safe, easy-to-fly car with wings. Ironically, this marketing strategy contributed to its initial reputation as a dangerous aircraft, often referred to in the industry alongside its big brother, the SR-22, as the Doctor Killer. The danger of the SR-20 lies not in mechanical fragility, but in the psychological trap it sets for its pilots. The cockpit is so sophisticated, resembling a luxury sedan more than an airplane, that it can induce a sense of detachment from the physics of flight. Pilots, often wealthy professionals with high confidence but low flight hours, would rely too heavily on the autopilot and the avionics, allowing their basic stick and rudder skills to atrophy. The SR-20 is a slippery, aerodynamic machine. It accelerates quickly and retains energy efficiently. This makes speed control in the traffic pattern critical. Unlike a draggy Cessna 172 that slows down the moment you cut power, the SR-20 wants to keep flying. This leads to pilots coming in too fast, floating down the runway and forcing the nose down, resulting in wheelbarrowing and prop strikes. However, the most feared characteristic is the stall-spin behavior. The wing of the Cirrus is designed with a cuffed leading edge to keep the ailerons effective during a stall, but if the aircraft is forced into a spin, Particularly at low altitude where the parachute cannot be deployed in time, recovery is notoriously difficult. In fact, the aircraft was certified with the parachute as a primary mode of spin recovery because traditional recovery inputs were deemed too demanding for the average pilot. This created a paradox. Pilots felt invincible because they had a parachute, leading them to fly into weather conditions, icing, thunderstorms, low visibility that they would never attempt in a traditional plane. The safety net became a noose. The accident rate for early Cirrus models was shockingly high until training standards were completely overhauled to emphasize decision-making over technology. Solo pilots in the SR-20 face the burden of managing a complex ecosystem of information. The glass cockpit provides so much data that it can lead to information overload. A pilot can become so fixated on programming the GPS that they fail to look outside and notice the terrain rising to meet them. Furthermore, the side yoke controller, while ergonomic, offers a different type of feedback than a traditional center stick or yoke, which can be disorienting during high-stress maneuvers for those transitioning from other aircraft. The SR-20 is a marvel of engineering, but it proved that making a plane safer on paper does not always make it safer in practice if the pilot does not respect the speed and complexity of the machine. 1. Piper Aerostar. The Piper Aerostar is widely considered the hot rod of the twin-engine world. Designed by the legendary Ted Smith, the same mind behind the A-26 Invader bomber, the Aerostar was essentially built around the concept of strapping the smallest possible airframe to the most powerful possible engine. It holds the speed records. It looks like a jagged piece of metal tearing through the sky, and for many pilots, it is the ultimate widowmaker. The Aerostar commands fear because it behaves more like a jet than a piston twin, but it lacks the safety systems of a jet. Its wings are short and thin, resulting in an incredibly high wing loading. This means the plane is stable at high speeds, but becomes a terrifying beast at low speeds. The stall speed is high, and the margin for error during takeoff and landing is razor thin. If an engine fails on takeoff in an Aerostar, the pilot has literally split seconds to react. The VMC, velocity of minimum control, is very close to the takeoff speed. If the pilot does not immediately identify the dead engine and feather the prop, the Aerostar will roll onto its back and dive into the ground. This VMC roll is the nightmare scenario for every twin-engine pilot. But in the Aerostar, it happens faster and more violently than in almost any other piston twin. The aircraft is unforgiving of anything less than professional-level piloting. It does not tolerate sloppy airspeed control. On approach, you must fly the numbers exactly. If you are too slow, the sink rate becomes unmanageable. If you are too fast, you will run off the end of the runway. Maintenance is another aspect of the Aerostar's deadly reputation. The systems are packed tightly into a compact fuselage, making access difficult and expensive. This leads to skipped maintenance items or deferred repairs by owners trying to save money. A mechanical failure in an Aerostar, given its aerodynamic intolerance, is often catastrophic. The fuel system is complex, requiring strict management to keep the center of gravity within limits. If the CG shifts too far aft due to fuel burn, the aircraft becomes unstable in pitch, making it nearly impossible to control in turbulence. Many pilots describe the Aerostar as the Ferrari of the skies, thrilling, fast and sexy, but prone to killing its owner if treated with even a moment of disrespect. It requires a pilot who is ahead of the airplane at all times. Flying an Aerostar solo means you are managing high-speed navigation, complex engine systems, and a sensitive airframe all at once. There is no co-pilot to read the checklist or handle the radios. The mental workload is immense. The Aerostar has one of the highest fatal accident rates in the twin-engine fleet, a statistic that hangs over every owner's head. It is a machine that seduces you with its performance, showing you 260 knots on the airspeed indicator, only to remind you in the landing pattern that gravity is a harsh mistress. For those who master it, it is the best plane in the world. For the unprepared, it is the last plane they will ever fly. So there you have it, the 5 airplanes that even the most courageous pilots hesitate to fly solo. Some were victims of their own ambition, pushing the boundaries of speed and aerodynamics until the safety margins became razor-thin. Others were victims of marketing, sold as safe or easy to pilots who lacked the experience to handle their unique quirks. And a few were simply engineering marvels that demanded a level of precision that human beings by nature struggle to maintain consistently. But despite their differences, they all share one common thread. They are unforgiving. They taught the aviation world painful but necessary lessons about the importance of training, the critical nature of maintenance, and the absolute necessity of respecting the flight envelope. These aircraft serve as a reminder that in aviation, complacency is the enemy. Whether you are in a high-tech composite cruiser or a vintage tail dragger, the laws of physics apply to everyone equally. The moment you stop fearing the machine, or at least respecting its ability to kill you, is the moment you are in the most danger. Flying solo is a privilege, but it is also a heavy responsibility. It requires you to be the pilot, the navigator, the engineer, and the risk manager all at once. For these 5 planes, that workload is often too much for one person to bear when the unexpected happens. Which of these aircraft would you never dare to strap into alone? Or do you believe that their bad reputations are just myths perpetuated by bad pilots? If you found this deep dive into aviation safety fascinating, please make sure to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel for more high-flying content. Share your thoughts and experiences in the comments below. We want to hear your war stories. Your support keeps us flying higher every week, helping us uncover the truth behind the machines that rule the skies. Stay safe, fly smart, and keep the blue side up.